Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Tuesday, it's December 3rd. Today is day 424. Today I'm joining you from New York City, where I've been having meetings calling for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire, which is in the best interest of all. Those in Gaza who've been suffering from months and months and months of daily bombardment and limited food. It's in the best interest of those, not only in the occupied Palestinian territories, but those in Israel as well. An update from the last 24 hours. I wanted to start with an update about the potential of a Gaza ceasefire agreement. An Israeli newspaper, Hebrew newspaper reports that there's actually optimism in Egypt about a deal before President Trump takes office. There's growing optimism about the possibility of reaching a ceasefire. According to sources, the Israeli government remains uncertain, but Hamas has shown significant flexibility and made concessions. Egyptian sources have revealed that Hamas has displayed flexibility on several points. They've made concessions regarding the timeline on Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. They've agreed to an extended time frame beyond what was initially proposed. The report also suggests that the implementation of the agreement might extend through the remainder of Prime Minister Netanyahu's current term, which is set to end in 2026. One of the issues up for discussion is allowing Hamas to compile a list of the living captives it holds. Just a reminder that it's not known how many hostages still remain alive, and it's believed that many are held by other militant groups other than Hamas in Gaza. A senior Egyptian official expressed optimism, noting the potential for breakthrough in the future. They said that Egypt hopes to reopen the Rafah crossing swiftly in coordination with the U.S. Additionally, the source indicated that Egypt has observed intense moves by the Trump administration, even before taking office, that the Trump administration is aimed at expediting an interim agreement. So this initial deal is expected to last about 2 months, during which further negotiations would take place on how to manage the Gaza Strip. So that's the update from the Israeli news source on the Gaza ceasefire agreement or the potential thereof. Al Akbar is another news source that said an Israeli delegation is expected to arrive in Cairo soon for ceasefire talks in coming days. They said that Cairo is anticipating a breakthrough for ceasefire negotiations in the near future, though potential surprises may be present on the Israeli side, especially related to Palestinian prisoners. That could pose potential challenges. Egypt hopes to resume operations of the Rafah border crossing in coming days in coordination with the U.S., which has shown increased interest in facilitating the crossing's reopenings. I know on some of the private chats that we're a part of that there have been calls for those who were waiting to get out of the Rafah border for Palestinians in Gaza to actually kind of line back up, if you will. And so it does seem to be that there's movement related to the Rafah border crossing. In Gaza, far-right finance minister in Israel, Smotrich, told Israel's public broadcaster that the IDF will remain in Gaza for an extended period to ensure security. They claimed that the long-term effective operational control over Gaza was defined as a goal by the war cabinet in Israel, and that it is essential to prevent threats to Israel. Smotrich dismissed estimates by Israel's defense establishment that the cost of the military governance of Gaza would cost 25 billion shekels annually, and said that instead they think it will only cost a few hundred millions instead. So there's quite a significant financial differential there. Palestinian factions Fatah and Hamas have agreed to form a joint committee to manage humanitarian aid distribution, oversee Gaza's civil administration, and coordinate reconstruction efforts following a series of meetings in Cairo. The committee will also supervise the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. That's coming out of meetings in Cairo. President Palestinian Mahmoud Abbas will issue a decree ordering the establishment of the committee, which will be subordinate to the Palestinian government on administrative, financial, supervisory, and legal issues. According to the health ministry in Gaza, the death toll there is at least 44,502 Palestinians killed since October of last year. In the West Bank, the Israeli Defense Forces have said that they have killed This is not in the West Bank. This is actually related to Syria. The IDF has confirmed that it killed Salman Jama, Hezbollah's liaison officer to the Syrian army, in an airstrike near Damascus. He was said to have aided weapons transfers from Syria to Hezbollah. And so Israel has been worried about advancing Syrian rebels who were said to take over Aleppo in recent days, and also Iranian militias operating in Syria who have potentially gained access to sensitive weaponry, including missiles and chemical weapons that could pose a serious threat to Israel. The IDF has said that Israel is willing to take preemptive action if dangerous weapons are secured. In terms of an update on a Lebanese ceasefire agreement, the Lebanese top officials have stated and pressured the US and France to press Israel to uphold the ceasefire agreement. They said that there have been dozens of military operations on Lebanese soil. There have been multiple violations. Israeli strikes on 2 different Lebanese towns in the south have killed 9 people and injured 3 others. And then there was an additional drone strike that killed another person in the south of Lebanon. Defense Minister Katz said during a visit to Israel's northern border that the Lebanese government must authorize the Lebanese army to enforce its part of the agreement, removing Hezbollah from beyond the Litani River and dismantling its infrastructure. And he warned that if Lebanon fails to do so, Israel will enforce the agreement with maximum force and zero tolerance. That's an update in that regard. In the United States, Israel's US relationship, President-elect Donald Trump warned on Monday that there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East if the remaining Israeli hostages that are still held in Gaza are not released by the time he assumes office on January 20th. And Trump's pick to serve as the ambassador to Israel, former pastor Mike Huckabee, said there must be serious consequences for holding any hostage, but America needs to exact severe consequences for the kidnapping and murdering of American hostages. There was a meeting on Monday between Antony Blinken and Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, where they assured that the best path forward in a post-conflict period is one that provides for governance, security, and reconstruction in Gaza. And Blinken said that Israel must do more to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance throughout Gaza, which has been nearly non-existent in recent days. UNRWA shut down their operations in terms of humanitarian assistance going into Gaza last week. In a government meeting in the north of Israel, Netanyahu said that Israel is currently in a ceasefire, but that the war has not ended. He thanked Trump for his strong statement, saying that President Trump put the right focus on the right place, on Hamas and not the Israeli government, as is customary. I also wanted to let you know about an op-ed that was in the Washington Post that Chris Van Hollen wrote. The Washington Post, it offered a strong indictment of President Biden's administration and his policies vis-a-vis the Middle East. Van Hollen called on the Biden administration to apply the U.S. Memorandum 20 that demands the withholding of U.S. weapons when they're used in violation of international humanitarian law. I'd really encourage you to read Van Hollen's op-ed. It was very strong, and CMEP lauds the courage of senators like Van Hollen and others alongside him who are seeking to call the Biden administration to account and to take strong actions in their last weeks in office. Finally, I wanted to close with a story that really encouraged me today. I was meeting with a Muslim imam who had taken the train from DC to New York City, and he was speaking to a woman who's a Christian on the train, and they started talking about what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in the Middle East. And she said, I have so many questions. And she was kind of discouraged, as we all are, about the horrific atrocities that are happening in Gaza. And she started to ask questions, and people who were sitting near them on the train started to listen. And he said that more and more people started to listen. And this imam happens to be Palestinian. And he is a peacemaker and an advocate of justice and reconciliation. And he started to answer questions. And he said more and more people listened, to the point to where he said it was like 12 people or more, were just listening. And he said it was almost like the whole car. And people would say, well, I have a question. And this person's an academic and an imam and a religious leader and a peacemaker and just an incredible human being. And he said that by the time he said, from like Baltimore to New York City, so many people on the train were talking about the war in the Middle East. And he said before they got to New York that some of the people that were sitting around him said, will you pray with us? And so he prayed with this Christian woman. And he said it was this really profound, beautiful experience of praying together. This Muslim man, this Christian woman, these other people, who knows if they had any faith tradition, but praying together for peace in the Middle East. And I thought that was a beautiful image of the way that we can increasingly come together to seek to answer questions when the situation is so desperate and there's so much work that needs to be done. So I hope that encourages your heart a little bit in the midst of such atrocities, and when there is so much work that is yet to be done. May God continue to go before us. Amen.